thank you very much for taking the time to do this interview.
My pleasure.
Oh, awesome. Well, it's great to be able to talk to you again. We got to talk a couple years back for talking about Lucifer, and now it's great to be able to talk about a band that I wasn't ever sure I was going to be able to do an interview for, with the Hellacopters and Eyes of Oblivion coming out in just under a month now from Nuclear Blast.
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
Yeah, I didn't know either.
Well, I'm so happy to see that you guys did decide to make a new album here for 2022, and I've gotten the chance to be able to check out this album this week, and it's everything that I love about the band in 2022. I mean, you guys are hitting all the styles that I've loved you guys for. You know, it's all the great peaks and valleys, no matter how fast or how slow or whatever style of rock and roll that you guys are going for. It just feels like it's a perfect culmination of where you guys are right now in 2022.
Oh, wow. Thank you. That's very nice to hear. That's awesome.
Oh, absolutely. So with that in mind, I mean, what was it like to start writing for the band again?
Well, to be honest, at first I felt it was a little weird, because the first time in my life I felt some kind of pressure when it came to writing. I never felt that before. It's always been, you know, you're in your own bubble and you write music for yourself. And this time, all of a sudden, it felt like we had to compete with, you know, people's history with the band somehow. In some weird way. I thought, oh, now we have to compete with albums that they've heard for a long time, and how do you do that? And then I realized you don't. You just write an album that you like, and after a while I could put that aside, and then it was fine again.
Yeah, and, you know, I can understand that as well, too. I mean, especially when you have such a varied discography as the Hellacopters has, and then, you know, being able to jump back into it. But just like you said, you know, when you take that pressure off and you realize that you just need to make the music that you want to make, then all that pressure does seem to die down, and you're able to just focus on making the best album that you possibly can.
Yeah, I mean, there's really no other way to do it, and I never thought it was either. But it's just that this time it did feel a little weird when we started, because, you know, it's been a while, and yeah. But yeah, now it feels good. Now I'm just happy.
So when you finally realized that you were able to take that pressure off and you were able to start writing, I mean, what was it like when you really started getting into it and you know that the album was going in the right direction?
I don't know. I mean, the thing about recording this album is we made it in a very, what do you call it? The sessions were spread out with so much time in between. So I think the first session we had in the studio together was 3 years ago. So we did that, you know, we're together in the studio for a couple of days, three days maybe, and then it was a gap for like 15 months, you know, or no, 3 or 4 or 6 months, you know, and that's why, I mean, effective studio time, it probably wasn't more than 2 weeks, maybe 2 or 3 weeks, but that is something that I don't think we want to repeat again.
Yeah, I can imagine what that's like, especially when you have that train of thought going and you're getting the songwriting, you're getting the recording, and then all of a sudden you have to put things to a stop. I imagine that the chemistry and the creativity and all of that, it's got to feel very strange when you have to put that on halt for a bit.
Well, yeah, that's the thing. That's kind of how I work. If I get into something, get excited about something, and then I get unexcited, and then my head moves somewhere else, you know. So then you have to start over again, kind of, and that wasn't so good. But I think I can't hear that, you know, on the album at least. So that's good. It's not like it sounds like the album is recorded with so much time in between, you know, and that was really important.
Yeah, I was just about to say that had you not said that, I would not have even thought that it was recorded over different times. I would have thought this was all recorded in one recording session, and all the songs were recorded at one time. It really does have that feel, and it's so great to hear that too. It's just like overcoming adversities like that and making the album just sound so cohesive together.
Oh, but that's cool. I mean, that's awesome that you also feel it that way. I mean, Michael Ilbert did a great job mixing it, and also, I mean, we as a band now, that's one of the good things about having played so long together. I mean, we did break up, but getting back together and the sound that we're creating together, it just sounds like us. It doesn't matter if we try to have a different approach to a song here or there, but it's still gonna sound like us anyway, and that's a good strength to have, I suppose, as a band.
Oh, very much so. And of course, with the versatility that you have as well, with all the instruments that you can play, the vocals that you approach, and everyone that you work with as well, too, I can only imagine how important that is for you to be able to have that chemistry with people, being able to have that songwriting ability with one another. And when you do find that, and you're able to have that with the right musicians, being able to write the right kind of music for what you're going for, it's got to be such a great feeling.
Yeah, it's good. You kind of take it for granted after a while. That's the sad truth about it. But yeah, it is really good. I mean, yeah, it's almost like I have to remind myself of that.
Oh, totally. I can completely understand that. But, it's just, I mean, that's the great thing about, like, revisiting the band here and being able to hear what you guys are doing here in 2022 with Eyes of Oblivion. I mean, it really feels like it's such a natural progression from head off. I mean, when you just listen to the albums back to back, it doesn't even feel like there was a lot of time in between. I mean, it just feels like such a natural progression for the band.
Well, I'm glad to hear that, but you also have to think about the fact that we're a band that was never, we never looked at what was in at the moment, I suppose. So it's never gonna sound, I mean, you have, now I'm mentioning the word retro, but it's because so many people use it all the time, and I think it's such a weird label on things that to me ultimately is just timeless, because I don't think, I mean, a lot of things, if I turn on rock radio here in Sweden today, in 10 years you will totally hear that it's from 2022. It's no mistake in it. I mean, I can hear it on the drum sound, I can hear it's everything's, that's in fashion today. You will not get that with the Hellacopters. So some people will call it timeless and some people will call it retro or vintage or whatever, But I mean, and that helps us in the sense that it doesn't sound too different from the album we did so many years ago, I suppose.
Oh, yeah. And, I appreciate it so much in the press release that I read before, too. It's like, you could say that the new album sounds like so many different kinds of bands, but really it sounds like a Hellacopters record. And that's exactly how I feel about it, because there are so many different styles of rock and roll that are going on throughout the album where you can't pinpoint it's going in one particular direction. It just feels like it's where the band is right now.
Yeah. I mean, I guess that's what we aim for without aiming for it, And, sometimes just I mean, when I write songs, I just write whatever comes out of my hands and my, there's really no thought behind, like, now I'm going to try to make this song or that song. It just happens. And that compilation of songs will make the album, and then it's kind of up to that, really.
Oh, it totally makes sense. So thinking about that as well, too, I mean, obviously with so much time in between albums and, picking out the right songs for what you're going to do, and then, of course, getting a label like Nuclear Blast to be able to help promote this album, I mean, what was it like to be able to hear the reception for new material for the first time? You know, obviously with the title track and you being one of the first singles and Reaper Hurricane being the other one as well. I mean, what was that like for you to be able to start getting that feedback?
Well, I mean, I'm one of those people who try not to read too much about what people think, but I do anyway. But maybe do it a little less than maybe the other guys in the band. Of course, it's nice to hear nice things about what you do. But you know, there are also, if you go through the internet and social media, there are also a lot of trolls. You know, people who voice their opinions even though they don't matter, and I don't know, I think the few people I talked to and people, you know, we did actually play 2 shows in December before, you know, restrictions came back on again, and it really does seem like people, they seem to like it, and that's, of course, that's such a bonus. I mean, we like it, but if the other, you know, the people who are supposed to listen to it like it too, then that's just amazing.
Oh, absolutely. So thinking about that, I mean, with the opportunity of being able to play a couple shows, I mean, what was that like for you to be able to get back on stage after so long of not even having the opportunity to?
Very nervous, I'd say. There's probably a lot of bands and artists that feel the same. I mean, that was the first 2 shows we played in 2.5 years, you know. And yeah, that was a bit, and we also happened to play at a really big place here in Stockholm, which was maybe not the wisest decision for your nerves, but it turned out really good. But then again, you know, the bands are rusty, but the audiences, they're also rusty. You know, nobody knows how to do this because it's so long, you know. But I think it's hopefully it's like riding a bike, that everyone, you know, as soon as there's some more shows going on, and then we'll get back into it, hopefully.
Oh, definitely. And, you know, when you were playing those shows, I mean, what was it like for you to be able to come up with a set list? I mean, obviously with the new album coming out and you want to be able to play more of the classic songs, I mean, what was it like putting that together?
I think what we did, because that was in December, and then there was only one song that we had released, which was Reaper Hurricane, and we just threw that in. And the rest was kind of similar to what we did before the pandemic, I guess. I mean, there's some songs that it almost feels like you have to play them. I mean, I guess you don't have to, but it feels like, you know, it'd be weird if we never play the song By the Grace of God, for example. It just feels like it has to be in the set somehow. But it's a luxury problem. It's a good one to have, you know. The more albums you make, and if people like the albums, then it's going to be more difficult to pick the songs, I guess.
Oh, yeah, and I gotta imagine, you know, it's like, no matter how many times that you've played a song and everything, I mean, especially when you think of the restrictions that have been going on for the past 2.5 years, I gotta imagine, like, even playing those songs had to just felt really good, and just knowing that you're back on stage, being able to play those songs for the fans that are back, that have been wanting to see you.
Well, in that sense, yeah, then it did feel like all the songs were kind of new, since it's been so long. So that didn't really, that wasn't a problem, you know, having songs feeling too old, no.
Oh, totally. And, you know, another great thing that I do love about this album so much, I mean, obviously, audibly, I love everything that's going on from start to finish, but I also love what's going on visually as well, too. I mean, the Hellacopters have always put out such amazing album covers, and I gotta say, you guys did it again here with Eyes of Oblivion. I love the neon colors that's going on, the lightning strike that's going on. I mean, it just feels like a real definitive Hellacopters album cover.
Oh, I did see some, well, thank you, but in this regard, I saw some comments, actually, and it seemed like some people like it and some people hate it. So, but, you know, we like it, so that's just how it is. And then sometimes I just need to, you know, grow on some people, I guess.
Well, I was just going to say, you know, just from my perspective, I just feel like it really gives a good feeling of the album that's going into it. I mean, when you got the visuals that's going on there, I think it's a great representation of the album. And, you know, it's just like when you can have something as striking as an album cover like that, it gets me excited for hearing the whole track list. So when I saw that first, it got me excited for the album right away.
Oh, that's great. I'm glad to hear it. I mean that's kind of how I work with music too. You know, sometimes it's the album cover that gets to you, and you feel like, oh, I want to listen to this. And you know, and sometimes you can have a great album, and then you hear a great album, you see the album cover, and then you're like, yeah, maybe they should have had something else. You know, those are the bands that maybe are not that visual. You know, I can't even think of an example, but of course that exists too. But I think it goes hand in hand. You know, if you go to a bookstore and you want to buy a classic. You know, and there's just happen to be two different covers. Of course, you're gonna buy the one that looks better, right? Even though you're gonna read it, but.
Oh, it definitely can happen that way, and you know that's why I'm glad that you guys chose an album cover that you really do enjoy. I mean, like you mentioned, you know, like some people might just have to warm up to it, and some people might not be into it at all. But there are people like me that really do like it. I think it's a great representation of it, and you know, it's just like I kind of hear those colors that's going on throughout the album too, which I try not to always associate it that way, but you know, sometimes just like the album covers and the visuals of the album, you know, just like when you close your eyes and listen to it, it just gives off that representation going on.
Oh, well, that's cool. Then we did something right. Yes. That's awesome.
Oh, that's great. So, you know, thinking about that as well, too, I mean, obviously, you have been staying busy, of course, with what's going on with the Hellacopters and obviously everything else that you got going on. And, you know, when you're working in something like this, when you have like a pandemic going on, when you got these restrictions going on, I mean, what is that like for you to be able to write songs or to record in this kind of situation?
Well, we had a different approach to the pandemic here in Sweden, which it's up for another interview, I suppose, if that was good or bad. But we didn't have as much restrictions as we had recommendations, which me personally, I'm not so sure if that was the right thing to do, but that's how the government treated it this way. So we didn't have lockdowns, not a single one, which meant we could actually see each other and to get together. But apart from that, we also live, Johanna and me lives out in the woods almost, you know, so, and we're in a house and we got an okay yard. So as you know, compared to people who live in the city, that must be, I think living in the city during lockdown, that's a lot worse than living in a house out in the sticks, you know. So I for me, it was actually, I'm sorry to say, but I actually think for me it was some good aspects. There was a little less traveling, which meant I could focus on songwriting, which I really enjoyed. So I mean, after a while, it got really tedious not to play live, of course. But for a while there, I think I rather embraced it.
Well, I'm glad to see that you did take full advantage of it that way when it comes to like songwriting and recording and everything that comes along with that. And, you know, obviously taking the safety precautions that you feel that you need to take too. I mean, over here in America, of course, with different kinds of lockdowns and restrictions and mandates that are going on, you know, I always want to try to feel as safe as I possibly can. And, you know, for someone like me that hasn't been to a show in almost 3 years now, you know, it's just like it's sad not being able to do that, but I also want to be able to have everyone get to that state where we can have those live shows again. So, you know, when bands and musicians and artists are able to take advantage of that and write new material or work on different projects or record whatever they feel like doing, I'm glad to see that they're able to take advantage like that.
I mean, you kind of see that some people did. I mean, I think a lot of bands and artists, they did use the time to record more stuff, and I think the bands who didn't, I think they probably got depressed, you know. And I mean, it hasn't been easy because playing no live shows also means no money, you know, because that's usually these days where, you know, some kind of money rolls in from, and that's been the same for everyone basically. So of course that hasn't been good at all, but apart from that, I think, you know, I think I could make use of the time.
Oh, definitely. So, you know, again, thinking about that as well, too, I mean, of course, with all all of the things that you got going on musically. I mean, what was that like to be able to like have the time to be able to work on different types of music and working with the different projects and bands that you have?
I just thought I think it was just the fact that there was no interruption of going to airports. That helped a lot. I mean, some people love touring more than others, and I love playing live, but sometimes getting from one place to another, it's maybe not the best thing you can think of. So I think, just the traveling part, airports and sometimes sitting in a van for 8 hours straight, that part I didn't really miss, So I think that made me just relax more and actually I was able to write more stuff, which is great.
Oh yeah, and it's like, if none of this would have happened, I mean, who would have thought would have happened with all of these different works that you've been able to record? Like, some of these might not have ever came to light or been the same way that they have had we not gone through this.
I think maybe they would have, but maybe it would have taken even longer, and I don't like things to take that long. I mean, I'm not dealing with rocket science. I'm using 3, 4, sometimes 5 chords, that's it. That shouldn't take so long.
Oh yeah, for sure. So, thinking about that as well too, I mean, obviously with the album coming out so soon now on the 1st of April through Nuclear Blast, I mean, now that the album is out and everything, like, how do you feel about, like, the final product now that you listen back on it?
Well, I'm one of those people, I'm sure I'm not the only one, but when I get really into recording an album and I get really into doing the artwork, and then when everything is sent off to the printers and the pressing plants, it's weird. I'm kind of done with it. So my head is onwards to the next thing. And which is, it's kind of silly, because then when finally the album is out, then it's when you have to start playing it, because that's the time when people actually hear it. So sometimes I wish it was the other way around, that you start playing the album, and then when you've finished with that tour, then you record it. But that doesn't really work, does it? So it is a little bit weird, because in my head, I'm already on to the next album.
Oh.
So I just think the last time I heard it, which was probably when the test pressing came, and I had to give a thumbs up or thumbs down for that. That's the last time I heard it, and I was happy with it. But I'm also done with it in some weird way,
Oh yeah, I can totally understand that too. I mean, especially when you've been working so long on it too, and when you finally realize that you're done with it, you're able to send it off, and then there's that little bit of time, and then you gotta start talking to people like me to be able to promote it, and then the fans start talking to you about it for like when the album comes out, and the live shows and the reviews, and putting together set lists for the shows and everything. It's good to take a little bit of a break like that and think about the future, and then having to come back to it. It can be a nice revisit to come back to it, but I can completely understand where you're coming from.
Yeah, but I mean, that's also how it's always been, and that's just how it is. There's no way around it, I suppose. But I also can't wait to record another album.
So, you did mention that, where you're already thinking about the next album. Like, do you have, like, any riffs or songs in mind already for the next Hellacopters record, or is it still really early in the ideas?
No, I think since every time I pick up a guitar, there's usually something coming out. Can't say it's always good, but so there's plenty of ideas, and I just need to find time to make demos, send to the other guys, But I don't think it will take that long before we get to it.
Oh, very cool. So, along those same lines, I mean, is there anything coming up as well for your outside of work for the Hellacopters, like any of your other work?
Well, we're going to be touring, this summer, like summer festival simultaneously with Lucifer, so it'll be a lot more for me this summer than, for the other. We're doing that, and we're hoping to go to America with Lucifer and the Hellacopters, so I guess we'll see. But the world is also acting very crazy at the moment, so it's like you have no idea if things are going to happen or not,
Oh yeah, and yeah, it's just it's not even just restrictions anymore that we got to think about. I mean, there's war, there's huge war going on right now. There's other complications going on throughout the world, and it's such crazy times that we live in. But again, that just makes me so thankful that an album like Eyes of Oblivion is coming out on the 1st of April. That I've had the opportunity to be able to check out this album and just really dive into what you're doing and just loving everything that's going along with it. And, just being able to have this half-hour conversation with you, being able to discuss this, like the songwriting, the album artwork, touring, all these things that I do hope happen in the future. And, if the world can calm down enough and be safe enough to be able to do all of these things, because I would love to be able to see the Hellacopters and Lucifer live if you do make it over here to America. But, until then, I got an amazing new album from the Hellacopters to be able to enjoy and have an interview like this, where I can't thank you enough for being able to take the time to do it.
Oh, my pleasure. I'm really glad that you like it, and I mean, we have to be able to play sooner than later. I'm sure of it.